right. Good night. Good night.
Good night. We out.
Hope everybody's having a good night. How about that? I'm off because I've been off a couple of weeks. So how's everybody doing tonight?
Doing good, man. We missed you, dude.
Yeah,
Yep.
we're glad to see you back, Matt.
Yeah.
I missed a week. You missed a couple. Eric and Devo held it down. Good to see you back, my friend.
It was Chocolate City up in this podcast too.
It was Chocolate City.
Yeah,
we had it going
the
on.
reviews probably were like this. They're like, "Whoa, these brothers on here doing this."
More people watching than we ever had.
Who broke into the studio?
Well, hey, best behavior, gentlemen. We got a special guest.
We got a guest. The doc's in the building.
Jason, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Doing good. Doing good. We're going to come back to you here in just a second and let you introduce yourself. But one thing that we talked about right before the show started is real quick, I'll give everybody an update because it's been a topic of conversation. Everybody obviously knows that I went out 2 weeks ago. It'd be 2 weeks tomorrow and had surgery over in where did we go? We went to
Chattanooga.
Yeah, Chattanooga. I can't remember. Chattanooga, Tennessee. Had a great surgeon. He was really good. He came in, started talking to me and Tisha and really put us at ease about what we were getting ready to do. And I will tell everybody that my recovery is going. I keep telling you guys I have 8 stab wounds in me because that's basically what they are. But still a little bit of pain, still moving slow. But he told me a couple of days after the surgery, the initial pathology report came back and all the cancer was encapsulated in the prostate. And so that's a good thing. So
awesome.
I'm waiting for the final pathology report and then waiting for the 6-week PSA draw to come out. And hopefully that's low and everything will be good. And I'll be back off and running. So the way, like I told somebody earlier today, the way to do it is find out you have cancer before the day after Thanksgiving and be cancer free by March. That's the way to do it. Get it in and get it out.
And by February.
Yeah, that's right.
Amen.
Yeah. So it's going well so far. My wife was a rock star. She really took care of me. I was really impressed. Of course, she's a nurse, but I'm grateful to her because she really, I'm lucky to have her. She did really well. But keep praying for me. Things are going real well. But that's the update. That's the cancer update there. So appreciate
news, my friend.
Matt, we can't talk about the catheter.
Well, yeah. Hey, the catheter, actually, he did what was called a suprapubic catheter. I didn't have to have a Foley catheter, and that went straight in through my stomach. And that was a blessing. That was really, he did that. And I think that's helped me get to the other side of a lot of issues that can accompany this surgery. I have not had any of them. So, awesome. And that's, I think, thanks to him. And it's really weird to, have this tube coming out of your stomach, but it was actually a great thing. So he was really good. He was really good. Johns Hopkins trained surgeon. And I couldn't believe how big the robot was that does the surgery. That thing is massive. Like, it is huge. You don't expect it to be so big. But it was really, really big if you haven't seen one. It's like a transformer sitting over there.
Not like a robot to bring you coffee or anything.
Yeah, like this big thing that's in there cutting in me. All right. So there you go. There's the update on me. Let's move on. We got a bigger topic tonight. So, the topic tonight is one that's not an easy topic to talk about, but I'm grateful that we're taking it head on. And that's what the show is all about. So, Jason, let's introduce yourself first and foremost.
Right. I'm Dr. Jason Eitri. And if I just give you a little quick background, I'm just going to start with med school where I met my wife, 3rd year. And then we ended up having our first kid pretty early on, intern year. Got pregnant intern year. She was at Davis. I was at UCLA. And then I went on to Philly for residency and she came with me. We had our son, Tyler, first month of residency in Philly. And then we had our daughter, Ava, about 18 months later. So terrible timing to do that during residency. And my wife at the time wanted to spend time with the kids. So she left her residency. It was originally general surgery. She wanted to be a plastic surgeon and I was in radiology. So just moving forward in time, when it was in academics for 8 years, very stressful lifestyle, working nights and weekends. And eventually after 8 years in academics, decided that was just not making me happy. I didn't want to do it anymore. We kept moving our kids every 2 years. They were getting, 10 and 12. And we ended up settling in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I'll probably just leave it there. That's a little bit of background. At that point, my daughter, just stopped right around where my daughter was 14, my son was 16. And just to characterize them, it's interesting being a parent, anyone who's not a parent, if you are, how two kids can come out completely different and be opposite in every way. And that kind of just characterizes our family and my two kids.
Yeah. Jason's my neighbor.
Jason, that's right. You are there together.
15 minutes from me.
That's right.
Yeah. So the topic tonight are the signs I missed a father's second chance. And so we're going to really jump into this. And, you can imagine when we're talking about a topic that is as sensitive as suicide, it's not an easy topic to talk about. And I think as a parent and as, me as a counselor, this is probably the hardest topic to really go through, to really talk about. And when you're looking at it from a parent's side of the house and you're looking at it from somebody who, your kids are the most important thing to you in the world. But we get caught as dads and as fathers, we get caught up in life. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to take care of our families. We're always pressing and working and doing because we think that's what we're supposed to do. And sometimes we miss it. And really, that's what happened with you, Jason. So I'm just going to let you take the floor and kind of talk us through the situation, what went on, and why is this important for you to talk about first and foremost?
Well, because I didn't think it could happen to me, and thinking, I'm a MD, PhD, pretty smart guy, succeeded in everything I did, a physician wife, and pretty successful kids, and to just, as a physician, I should understand what depression looks like. I should understand what a depressed kid or I should understand what those signs are. And like you said it perfectly. You get caught up in life, and I was so busy with work and trying to take care of the family and we had started a business at the time for my wife to start practicing again, and basically working in the med spa during the day and trying to run the practice and then working night shifts at night. It just completely blindsided me. And in retrospect, the signs were there. And I don't want to say I should have known. Really deep down, yeah, I should have known. But I think the reason I want to talk about it is because more than anything, I'm incredibly lucky to have gone through it just being a suicide attempt and not being successful.
Yeah.
And if there was ever a wish I could ever make, it was that would happen, that it would be an attempt and not it having gone through. And so if there's anything I can share about the experience that would help someone else avoid that situation, then it's I've actually been wanting to talk about it because I'm hopeful that this situation is going to happen to other people and other families and other dads, and if I can help prevent that would be huge.
Yeah, you may not know this yet, Jason, but I was an air medical pilot for 6 years, and I flew 659 patient flights. And unfortunately, there's 10 plus of those that were suicide attempts, right? And when you're getting flown getting flown in a helicopter, there's a good thing because it was a suicide attempt and they didn't succeed, but a lot of times they're in pretty bad shape, pretty critical shape, and so it was really a sad thing because how many if we're open and honest about it, for everyone that we got, how many succeeded,
Yeah.
and that's the hard thing to talk about. What were some of the signs that you missed? What were some of the things that went on?
Well, I think one, she started off, when she was younger, she was very outgoing, would always make friends at school, academically did very well, never had to give her a hard time about homework. I mean, always had A's and a few B's here and there, but I never got any reports from teachers like she didn't do her assignment, she wasn't doing her work. Never had to yell at her. Anytime she did something wrong, it was really just, hey, this is what you did, that shouldn't happen. She just listened, and she did what she was supposed to do and was reliable. She was smart. She was insightful. felt like she had a really good handle on interacting with other people. And what I didn't see happening, because I was so busy working and handling, the med spa and my own work, and thinking I was taking care of the family, is she became very withdrawn. And so I would see her less and less. And I think it was the same with my son, but he's a gamer. So, he was always in his room playing games. I could always hear him yelling and hollering and having a good time. But over time, what happened was the kids would stop having dinner with us. They'd eat up in the room, and I wouldn't see him as much. They wouldn't watch TV downstairs with us. So she became very withdrawn. And I think part of that problem is that I couldn't really see how she was behaving. She lost interest. Another one is she lost interest in things she really liked doing. She was very much into art, and had a few, was in gymnastics, had done a few sports. And then over time, those kind of whittled, there were different reasons why they stopped. And they all seemed like legitimate reasons. She kept getting injured in gymnastics. I was fine. I think with the art, she eventually became overcritical. And that's another warning sign, is that kind of perfectionism, kind of being unhappy with what you were doing. And I thought she was a fantastic artist. I still have her stuff up in my room. Her sleep became, the term is hypersomnia, but basically you go to sleep early, wake up late, you sleep a lot, 10 to 12 hours. That's another symptom. She started losing some weight, which she wasn't really overweight to start with, but she got noticeably skinnier. And then the real warning sign. Okay, so it was her freshman year of high school. I'm sorry, her last year of middle school. And she came to me and said, "Dad, I want to do online school because I feel like I'm being held back at school. I'm bored." And she was getting all A's. She was in the gifted program. And she's a smart kid. So she knew how to talk to me. She knew how to make this work. And her mom didn't really want her to do it. And I took her at face value, and I said, "Okay, let's make a plan." We had a plan for her to socialize, plan for her to make sure she came back doing some kind of activities. We had a gym in the basement. She would work out. And, we vetted several online schools. She found a very good online school. The matriculation was, kids going to UCLA and Stanford. And, I bought in, and we went for it, and she got in and was doing that for 3 months. And 3 months in, I get an email that she hadn't done work for 3 months. And that should have been probably the biggest cue, because that wasn't like her. And instead of realizing it, I was, I went in her room. I was a little upset, and I wouldn't say yell at her, but I'm like, you can't let this happen. I think part of it was I felt responsible for that decision, and I felt let down. And it just made me miss the fact that she was struggling, and we put a plan together, and she still couldn't keep up with that plan. And despite all those things, I still never saw it coming.
Yeah. What do you think the outside influences? And because this is something that I think a lot of people deal with now as parents and all that. And especially with young ladies, I'm going to call it how I see it, is with young ladies. These outside influences really put a lot of pressure on our young women nowadays. Did you think there was a lot of that? Social media, other things that are going on. I mean, I think there's a lot of the friend groups and the fear of missing out, call it the FOMO or whatever. It's because you can see what everybody's doing, and if you're not a part of that, you feel left out. If you're not in the middle of it, you feel hurt. And this is a topic that we talk about a lot on this show. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think absolutely it was peer groups. It was her friends. And I don't, my wife was insistent that a lot of what happened was the negative influence of her friends. I'm not going to go that far because I don't know. I didn't see the things she talked about. I don't know if her friends were helping her through difficult times, or maybe contributing to them. Several of her friends over the years, a lot of her friends are outside of the local area. They're online friends. So, we went to Florida for a couple of days to Disney World to one of her friends to meet for the first time, and we had a great time. So it's like, she had good, solid friends, but it all coincided. I'll say, as a parent, it's tough because you make these decisions and you don't know until 5 or 10 years later, unless that they're the right decision or not. And I would say, giving my kids a lot of autonomy, giving them cell phones early, I think those were all mistakes. If I were to do it over again, I would, I thought that giving them autonomy early would teach them responsibility and they would kind of grow into that. And I don't think that was it didn't work out like that. So I think giving her the phone early, I don't think that she did much social media, but she was on YouTube. I think Discord, did a lot of messaging with other kids. I think it all coincided with, that's where she was spending her time, and that she was being influenced somehow. So I think that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah, the fear. I don't want to say the fear. I just think there's a lot of things that go on nowadays where the kids feel left out. They don't feel a part of it, and it's not that they're, back when we were young, if three of us went to go do something, you didn't really know. You're at home. You had no way to know because we're not posting pictures online. We're not seeing it. You're not getting that instant back and forth. And that becomes a little bit hard on these. Immediately if there's a group of people out doing something and you're not there, and it makes you like, well, why am I not part of it? Why am I not there? And that's just one example and all that. So I was, just wondering, how that affected. Well, take us a little bit deeper. Once it, unfortunately, you had the attempt. How did that all play out? And if there's anything else you want to say before you get to that point.
Yeah, I would say that was a pretty good lead up. 3 months, we were probably working on a plan together for about a month trying to catch her up. She couldn't catch it up. And then one day I was obviously working a shift like usual, working a night shift up in my room. And my wife comes running up and says, Ava's in the tub. She just took some pills. And, I didn't hit it. It still didn't even hit me then what she had done, that it was a true suicide attempt. And we, she called, so went downstairs. We talked to her. She was very upset. She was sitting in the tub. She had taken some Tylenol, some Zantac, and some melatonin. And my wife called poison control and they said, take her to the ER. And I was like, yeah, what choice do we have? So we took her to the ER. And I think once she was evaluated, and they said, look, we were going to transfer her to inpatient stay in Northern Virginia. It'll probably be about a week long, but it's a 24/7 type hold where there's no in and out. There's visitations like 3 days a week for an hour, but really they need to do a full evaluation. And I think that's when it hit me like, wow, I can't try and rationalize it as a call for help. This was a true attempt and I need to treat it like it is.
Yeah.
And I would say that's when I realized she was a different kid.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the environment that made her different. It was just she had just, I think a lot of what had happening, I was finally realizing because I was actually sitting there talking to her. I would go visit every couple of days for that hour, and it just wasn't the kid I remembered. And so I knew something was wrong. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it just it snowballed on her? Do you think it just the pressure and the anxiety and everything just built and built and built, and then obviously if you get to the point that you attempt, you feel like, okay, there's no way out. A lot of times you get to that.
I think it did. And what we didn't realize until we got testing done, we had some pretty extensive testing, actually came up with a few diagnoses. So one was that she had a social anxiety, which is a major driver of her not wanting to be in local school.
Yeah.
And, like I should have asked the question of why don't you, she said the kids were holding her back, but it's like, okay, give me some details. Right. And I should have seen the social anxiety because we go out to dinner and she'd ask me to order for her. And there were signs of that. So that was a big one. The social, not wanting to be around other kids. She of course had the depression diagnosis because of the attempt. And it turned out that she has high functioning autism, which is a really interesting one. I had to learn a lot about autism, but some of the features that are really interesting are she's very sensitive to temperature, very sensitive to sound. I didn't realize until afterwards. So she would hear something and actually twitch because it was so loud. And I didn't even hear it until I saw her. And then I thought, okay, I just heard something off in the distance. And somehow she heard it so loud that it bothered her. And it was the same thing with temperature. She was struggling at school in the summer because, even at 73 degrees, that was just way too hot for her. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of those things had built up to the point where she just felt like, she didn't like who she was. She didn't like the way she looked, and she just didn't want to keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. Josh, you or Eric have anything you want to add or ask at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's in, I guess, all the things that I have read and seen, and maybe statistics you guys know, is the suicide is very male dominated. So I think, and as a dad, obviously you said it, like, hey, I missed it. And I think us as dads, we try to provide and we try to do all those things, and missing it seems easy to do. How maybe how did you come to grasp that? Because I mean, I have a daughter, obviously, and I have a son. That's dad's daughter. You're a doctor, your wife's a doctor, that sort of thing. Not that the profession makes, that per se doesn't matter. It's almost like you know, opioids and things like that. It doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter your economic background. I can think the same thing with suicide. But how did you come to grips with that, being that it's such a small percentage, I guess, of women? And maybe you guys know, is is the teenage realm of suicide more female than male, or is there enough statistics out there? Maybe that's a twofold long question, but
Got it. Yeah. So I think younger women tend to attempt more often, but the successes are more common with the men, the boys, because they typically choose a more aggressive or violent route.
gotcha.
I think uh, weapons might be one of the top causes,
Sure.
and thankfully, young women choose not to go that route. Um, I I think it made me realize. I think my contribution to it was that I lacked the skills to be able to talk to my kids, and I didn't realize that until afterwards. And part of that was the way I grew up, is just not really having the skills, the emotional intelligence and skills to talk about more than just what happened during the day, or did you do your homework, and um, ask them the tough questions, get into really understanding how they're feeling, how they're doing. And I would say I'm still not great at it, to the point. I remember with my son, so I ended up going through divorce with my wife, moved, but the kids decided to live with me. I had to move out with them, and it was a pretty stressful time. And I remember I blew up at him one day, and I just couldn't figure out how to have a conversation with him. So I just wrote a letter and I left it for him. And I'll be honest, something as simple as that, our relationship got substantially better after that. I think he understood where I was coming from. I was able to say the things I wanted to say that I couldn't say out loud. And I think I've worked on both relationships and that communication skills since then. It's still hard. I still don't understand how to do it well. But realizing communication is really the foundation of understanding your kid and where they are. For anyone, figure out those skills, find someone to help you with those skills, read a book, do something to learn those skills.
Yeah. I'm glad you transitioned into that, because it brings you up to the attempt and all that, and where we were going to talk about next is, well, what next? How do you rebuild that? How do you open that up? And I want to say this is, like, because one of the things that I speak and talk about when I got to speak is decision making. And one of the things in the decision making that I speak and I talk about is there's no such thing as a bad decision. Um, Meaning that we don't set out to make an error. You didn't set out to not know that this was leading up for your daughter, right? It's not something that, if you did, you would have stopped it well before it got to the attempt. So one of the things that I talk to a lot of people about is you can't beat yourself up for something you
Yeah.
didn't know. And that's why you're talking about it. And that's why we're extremely thankful that
Yes.
you've been willing to come on and talk about this topic, because you got to be aware and you got to look for the signs, but you don't always know the signs that you're looking for. Because if you'd have known the signs that you were looking for, it would have never gotten here. You know.
Yeah.
So we bring up to the attempt, and so what next? Before we do that, I want to ask you one thing, real quick, because you kind of talked about it. And as a physician, and I talk to my wife about this all the time because she's a pediatric ED nurse, and so, and in the state of North Carolina, amongst other states, is we don't do a good job with our mental health. We have a mental health crisis in this country, and we all know that. And in the state of North Carolina, we are so underwhelmed with our responses. There is kids who are inside of the emergency EDs who do not see the light of day for 6, 7, 8 months because we do not have the facilities, or we do not have the places that we can treat them and give them the care that they need. As a physician, do you have a take on that, or what you've seen or what you've learned since this all took place?
I mean, it's absolutely true. There's such a dearth of mental health experts and resources in all of Virginia, to the point where everything I had, everything I've had to do, I've had to take her to Richmond. So, which is not terrible. It's an hour, but sleep studies, the testing, a lot of the mental health expertise was outside of the state. And it's extremely frustrating. I would even say the schools, we put together programs with the people who are supposed to be expertise in that area, but it's when you go to a program where they know what they're doing, you see the difference between them and a school that just really doesn't have the resources. And I remember, one of the early decisions, thankfully, because I'm a doctor, I know the system, right? So I have these resources, I have these people I can talk to. She spent about a week up in Northern Virginia, and then their recommendation was to send her to Utah for inpatient stay for like 6+ weeks. And when I brought that up, I mean, that was just devastating. And
Yeah.
I couldn't, seeing the reaction, I couldn't go. I just could. I went home. I'm like, I can't do that. So I called my buddies, found a med student buddy I worked with who was a psychiatrist whose son actually had gone through something similar, and we talked for several hours at night. And he's like, no, I think you need to go to an outpatient stay. I think you'd be much better. I think she'd be much better off. So the next day I called around, found Shepherd Pratt up in Baltimore, and then we spent the next 2 weeks there. So, luckily I was in a position where I could do that. I packed up, I'm a radiologist. I packed up my workstation, stuck it in my car, drove it up to Baltimore. We spent 2 weeks there. I just read during the day. And then at night after each session, we'd go and do something, go eat dinner, go to the mall, go to the movies, and just, not really talk about anything, just kind of enjoy the time. And I think that was the first step towards working on that relationship.
Yeah. So expand on that, because expand on that. That's important, that you are able to be there for her at such a vulnerable time, right? To be there for her at that time and start to rebuild that relationship.
Yeah, I didn't know what she was going through. So early on, I said, I'm not going to try to understand. Like, I don't, if she doesn't want to tell me, I'm not going to make her tell me. I was trying to read books. I was trying to understand the autism diagnosis and the social anxiety part and cognitive behavioral therapy, what they were doing at Shepherd Pratt. And I think one good decision I made early on was I realized a lot of what was happening to her was taking her independence away. So, can't be trusted with certain things, can't have meds out in the house, can't have knives, or a lot of, her mom wanted to take her phone away and go through it. And I think what I did early on that was smart was I said, look, I'm going to trust you. But if I trust you, like, we have to have a relationship where if you have a problem, if something's happening, if you feel like this again, you have to be able to come to talk to me. And I think that was that, coupled with the fact that I said no to the inpatient stay, and I told her that. I'm like, look, I saw the way you felt. I couldn't do it. We're going to do Shepherd Pratt instead. And everything I did with her, I took her to every therapist appointment. I took her all the testing. I listened to asked the questions. And I think just seeing me try to learn without trying to pry or create barriers or be punitive, because it would be so easy to be punitive. It would be so easy to say, well, I'm going to take these things away because of this. I don't trust you anymore. I kind of went the opposite way and say, look, this isn't going to work long term unless I trust you. So I'm going to trust you. And I think that was a good move. I think that helped.
Yeah.
How old was she, Jason?
At 14 time? At the time of the attempt.
So tough age, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
For anything, not just for that, but for the trying to take things away. I mean, that's the phone and social media and all. I mean, that's their world. That's the only thing that matters at that age is you take their phone, you take their friends, you take some of that stuff away. That's their whole world. So
Well, you isolate them more, right?
you isolate them
Yeah.
even more.
Isolate them
You know, you want answers. You want to know if there was an influence there.
Sure.
But I just said, you know, I'm going to trust you. And if you tell me there's no bad influence and you tell me it's fine, then I'm going to, you know, I'll be okay with that.
Yeah, it's a good time for Amy's question right here. She said,
Yeah.
how did you navigate the feeling of worry that it might happen again during all this, or even after this, or even now?
I think it's you. I just kept working on the relationship and building the trust and you know, she was with a psychiatrist for over a year. The most likely time for a reattempt to happen is within the first year.
For sure.
Ended up getting her off medications. Actually, the 4 different medications, none of them made any difference on their standardized exams. So I just took her off the med. I'm like, there's no point in doing this. But the relationship has gotten, I mean, when I decided to leave the house because of divorce, I didn't ask the kids to come with me. I didn't realize this was going to happen, but she, you know, texted me and she said, are you going to bring me with you? And that was about a year after the attempt. And I think that just shows the work I put into building that relationship where she felt like she'd be better off with me.
Yeah.
And I mean, to this day, that's just what I work on. I work on that relationship. I'll tell you what we're doing now, you know, and to try and do things with her, like to have a life together, but not be overbearing. So I'll often ask, do you want to watch TV? She almost always says no, and that's okay. But we are going to go to Japan for 3 weeks because she really wanted to go to Japan, and we're taking Japanese lessons. So it's those kind of things. I think that the little things like that build a relationship of trust where I don't. If someone was going to ask me if I thought that was going to happen again, I would say pretty like 100% no at this point. I think it's very likely that would happen.
Well, we talk about this all the time, right? We talk about communication and being able to communicate, open up those lines of communication and people ask me, I have a good relationship with my kids. I really, really do. And people and my kids, I mean, I'm bragging on them, but they're doing pretty well. And so some of my friends will say, well, how did y'all do it? What did you do? And we did exactly what you're talking about. Like we were present and we opened up the lines of communication with them. And I think that is the number one thing that you can do. It's so easy, like you talked about, to get caught up in the day to day and that, you know, everybody's running, your kids are running, you're running, everybody's going a different direction. And if you can't stop and really be present like you were able to afterwards, you know.
And that communication can just be just chit chat, just small talk. A lot of our conversation now is just random. How was the day? And tell me about the bunnies. And you know, I took my kids to DC to get global entry on the weekend before the big snowstorm, and you know, just to hear them back there laughing and talking the whole time, and then making fun of me, and you know, the banter back and forth, and none of it was deep. None of it was how do you feel. It was just a regular interaction with the regular family, and I think that feeling of regularity helps.
Yeah.
Jason, I was gonna say, as I've been listening the whole time, one, very courageous for you to come in and share your story. I thank God, like you say, that it was an attempt and not, you know, and so thank you for being on and sharing that. I'm interested because I have 2 boys, and like you say, sometimes their personalities are totally different and whatnot. But while you were experiencing this from a father's perspective, I'm curious to wonder how your son was going through this, watching the necessary attention to his sister, but yet potentially needing dad as well. And how is he now in terms of navigating time between your relationship that's continuing to build with your daughter and his place and space in your life as well?
I think it was really tough on him, and he tried not to let it show. And then the divorce happened, and that would, you know, I didn't realize the stress it had on him. When we moved out, Neva came with me. He stayed with his mom, and he's like, yeah, I don't want her to be alone. And I agreed with that. I thought that was a good decision. And it wasn't until one day we were in the car doing something and he just broke down crying. And it took that for me to realize that he was struggling too. I mean, that's like, I just kept missing signs. And that was helpful though, to see that, to understand what he was going through, because it completely changed my approach to him. And so, same approach I used with her. I tried to work on that relationship, and I wrote the letter, and there, it's a mix of building the relationship, but at the same time, he's 18 and he's doing a gap year because he wants to be a professional gamer at Valorant. And so part of that is you got to have some responsibilities around the house. You got to be able to clean up, and so it's a tough balance. Like, you don't want to step on eggshells and just let your kid get away with anything. They still got to learn some responsibility, but at the same time, you don't want to stress them out to the point where they withdraw or they think about, being a parent's tough, man.
Yeah.
So I think it was really hard on him. He's thankfully a lot better than I am with communication, and I think he's always been very open, a very happy kid. So the nice thing is when I see him happy, I know he's doing well. And so he'll come up from gaming. We'll watch anime every once in a while. His Valorant international competitions are in LA once a year in the summer. So we always go out for a week and we spend the week together. So, it's kind of the same approach. I just use the same approach to spend time with him, just like I did with her.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask one more question, Matt, if you don't mind,
No,
because these guys know me. They know that my life kind of revolves around my faith, but second to that, my wife. And when you mentioned that ultimately, you had to part, I'm curious to know what that dichotomy was like between what she was thinking at the time, what you were thinking. I can only assume that there may have been some finger pointing. And, how did you balance that to get to that point? Because my world would be rocked without Aaron. I'm just be honest with you. And so, but when something happens to your children, I can imagine what that push, pull, and struggle was that ultimately caused you to have to divorce.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say with our kids, for the most part, we were on the same page. I would say what happened to us was, it really kind of started 10 years before, when we bought a house in Cincinnati that had a bar in the basement, and we had never drank. And then we had a bar, really nice basement, beautiful bar, pool table. So we started getting liquor. And the next thing you know, every January 1st, we're dumping a recycle bin full of liquor bottles because we're drinking too much. And probably 10 years of really just, I would say we were both alcoholics and high functioning. Very stressful lifestyle, and we didn't drink because we were stressed. We drank because we were happy, and we thought it helped us have a good time. And when the attempt happened, this was November of 23. That's when I realized that the liquor was definitely contributing to household problems, and we were having more arguments, and we were not acting like ourselves. And I remember I stopped for about a month, and I felt completely different. And that's when I realized that the attempt that I had to do something different with myself, because I wasn't taking care of myself, and realizing that it was making me feel a lot worse to be even though at the time I felt better, drinking was just killing me, health wise, in terms of my mental resilience and being able to deal with pressure and problems. And I think really the alcohol and the stress of the life that we had, and being the workaholic, and that's what led to our going separate ways. And so, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, that was a good transition there, Eric, because that's the next direction we're going here is, how those life changes, what you just explained and what you just went through has kind of led you in a new direction, not only as a parent, but also for yourself. And we talk about this a lot on this podcast, is that, Josh is not there. So how old are you, Jason? Are you in your 50s yet?
I turn 51 next week.
Okay. 51 next
2
week.
days. 2 days.
Yeah. So we'll leave Josh.
Leave me out of this one.
Yeah, we'll leave you out of this one because he doesn't understand. But we all, me and Eric and Devon, we talk about you hit your 50s, and it's almost like you flip the switch almost in a lot of ways. So your late 40s and into your 50s, you hit this switch and you start to think, I got to make some changes. Maybe it's the wisdom that I don't really know what it is, but you start to kind of evolve a little bit as a person and as a parent. And you and I talked about this yesterday. I would with some of the health issues and the dumping syndrome, and then I've lost a bunch of weight and I've got myself back in shape, and I'm on the right track. But yeah, you just go through this evolution. I think you get a little clarity about life almost. So talk about that with you and your journey that you've been through and that you're going through now.
Yeah, when that happened, I remember thinking, I need to take better care of myself, because otherwise I can't take care of her. And I mean, I was in bad shape, just in terms of lifestyle and the liquor and not taking care of myself. And it was really her that gave me the strength to start turning things around. And it becomes easy, like the motivation when you're doing it for her, doing it for someone, you're doing it for one of your kids. It's almost like when you don't have a choice, or you don't have a choice, you just do it. And so it was a lot easier to get off the liquor. It was a lot easier to turn things around. And then I, just as an extension of that, I'm like, I just got to start eating healthier. I got to start working out. Like I started, I'm originally a radiologist. And so we were in the process of opening up a men's clinic. So we had a med spa. We always struggled to get men to go. So we were going to open up a men's clinic right next door. And she did all the aesthetics. And at the med spa, I started doing all the wellness treatments. So the GLP-1s had come out. I was doing a lot of weight loss, a lot of hormone replacement. And what I realized was that the meds really don't do a whole lot. They help, but the really gets you the bang for the buck is the nutrition, the exercise, the stress, and the sleep. And the more I saw how much of an impact that had, the more I was like, I need to learn more about this. The MD didn't teach me anything. So I went back and got functional medicine training and really kind of used myself as a guinea pig. Everything kind of happened at the same time. I'm like, I need to take better care of myself. I started really paying attention to nutrition, exercise, got myself a wearable, started doing the sleep thing, stress. Really, I looked at everything out there about what's evidence-based for stress reduction. There's really no one out there you can go to for stress reduction. So I kind of had to learn all this on my own. And then, you talk about, you get your 50s, you hit this different place, you feel a little like you lost a step. Now that my health is considerably better than it used to be, like I feel like I'm in my 20s and 30s again.
I do too. I do too.
I did not expect that.
Yeah.
Not at all. Everything came, I used to joke with people. I'd have a conversation. I couldn't remember something. And I remember I would say, just give me 5 minutes. It would take 5 minutes for something to come back. It was like one of those old computers. You'd do something, you'd hear it going. You knew what happened, but it would just take longer. And after a couple of years of really taking care of myself, like that memory everything came back. So I feel great, and it's just by accident.
Yeah. So in what ways, as men, I got 3 men right here, and we'll even count Josh in this because he's got his health issues, No. Like, what would you say to maybe future clients or people like us that, like, where do you start? Where do you get going? What do you need to start looking at?
That's a great, so a message I like to give people first is you got to put yourself first. And it's not a selfish statement. It's like, especially a man trying to take care of their family, they're at 100%. I mean, just nights and weekends, just go in and they don't complain. They don't say anything. They just do it. And, depression manifests differently in men. They get real quiet. They internalize things. And I didn't realize, never going to say I had depression, but like we take a lot of stuff without having a good outlet. And if you don't take care of yourself, you don't have that resilience. You can't take care of the people around you. So I tell people, if you're at 100%, you got to take 5% back on yourself, whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual, whatever it is, put that back in yourself, and you're going to see that pay itself off. Okay. That's where I start. I think when we talk about lifestyle interventions, diet's first. It's so simple. The stuff you put in your body, the fast food is, it's nothing but inflammation and problems. When I work with patients, I think the key is small steps over time. So I tell them, do one thing at a time. If exercise, start walking, get your 10,000 steps. Diet, start the Mediterranean diet. If sleep is what's killing you the most, we got to, we get a wearable, look at what the sleep scores are, figure out what the problem is. But you have to put the time in the day to take care of yourself, because otherwise it's not going to happen. I think that's the biggest message.
Yeah. Well, little public service announcement for me. I mean, we talked about this is I have a good company that pushes physicals, get your physical. And so if you're a man, you need to be getting your physicals, because I mean, again, I feel like I'm in the best shape I've been in a long, long time since I was in the Marine Corps. But if I hadn't have gone and been tracking my PSA, getting that simple blood test that showed my PSA, I would not have known that I had prostate cancer. I had no idea. And if I had not figured that out and taken the right steps because I was doing what I needed to do, 5 years from now, my life could be a whole different ballgame if I hadn't caught it. Yeah. So
I think a lot of men, they're in a little bit of denial about their health. And it's like my dad, he will not go to the doctor unless he absolutely have to. Won't do any screening. But one message I think is you want to be proactive, not reactive. And the sooner you find a problem, especially before it presents with symptoms, there's so much lab testing you can do. The sooner you get to a problem, the easier it is to fix. And I think that's a really good argument for what exactly Matt's saying is, get in there, get your physical, get your lab work done, take care of yourself, especially if you got a family to take care of, because that's the best way to take care of them is take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you guys said it too. Like men we just think we're invisible. So we don't go to the doctor. We don't get, those things done. And, Eric and I are in the same business, insurance business. And with life insurance, you got to get a physical. We need blood, we need urine, we need all that stuff. And when I first started the insurance business about 14 years ago, I actually had clients, like, hey, I want to get life insurance. Great. Blood, urine, all that stuff. And it would come back denied. I'm like, well, why? Well, I can't find that out, but you can. And the number of times, and they were men, that would come back and say, hey, I had no idea that I had elevated PSA or I had elevated A1C or whatever. And then they go to the doctor. And then the biggest thing is coming back going, Josh, if you hadn't talked to me about life insurance, I would have never known this. Same thing with Matt saying, if we didn't do that. So I started way back then, annual physical, full blood work, all those things. And you catch stuff like that. And again, I know we joke about it because I'm not in my 50s yet, but my doctor said there's a lot of things that he's going to do to me at 45 this year that I'm not really looking forward to. So, but I think it's huge with men because we just, again, you said it, Jason, we help everybody else. And you can't pour from an empty cup if you're empty. And then for men, that's just the resiliency. Like, I got you. In the meantime, we're crumbling. We're just not going to tell anybody about it. And then that's where the depression starts. And then that's where, like you said, we manifest it differently. It's self-care is not selfish. And that's one thing that I learned a while ago. And you tell people, because just like what you said, Jason, start with yourself. And as a man, you're like, hey, I'm looking out for me. We're automatically selfish. That comes with being a man on the outside world. But self-care and trying to take care of ourselves first before we do that is absolutely huge. So I appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of people that listen, including men, women too, but men, there's not enough men talking about, there's nobody that talks about the stuff we talk about on Tuesday nights. Definitely nobody talking about what you talk to tonight. It's just people, especially men, I think. Yeah. So, appreciate obviously your perspective, what you've gone through, what you're doing now, how you're helping people here locally where we live. It's huge. I think it's huge. So
I was listening to you guys and thinking, man, Jason, you got to come back on just to do a health conversation. I was perking up when you were talking about your sleep and other things, because last night I was laying in the bed complaining to my wife. I was like, I hate this and I hate that, and I don't know about this, and it was all because somebody hung up the phone on me yesterday, and I was so pissed off. I was thinking midlife crisis, world's ending, and it was just a phone call. And by the time I, blessed to get up this morning, new outlook, just like why do we do this? Why do we take on all that stress for no reason? I just needed to realize it was a bad phone call. No big deal. Yeah. But you're spot on, because we can control that, and like you say, be proactive instead of reactive. As when you said it, I was like, damn, this guy knows me. I think he's known me all my life, because that's the way I am. I never want to put somebody in a position where they tell me what I have to do when I have the ability to do it, because I know it's right. And Matt and I talk about, Josh and I talk about being former athletes, college athletes, and we have muscle memory. We know, like when I gain weight, I know at the point where I'm like, I no longer want to carry this. Now I got to get back in the lab and get this weight off, and I know how to do it. But I don't want to get to that point where I get to, it's like, I waited too late, and now it's too hard to get off, or something grows from that or whatever. So you're spot on about us taking control of the reins before someone has to medicate us and make us do things we can naturally do on our own.
Yeah. Well, the mental piece too, I think, is, and you guys alluded to it, and Devo said it in there, and, Amy asked the question too, but the mental health, we have a mental health crisis in this country. And, just speaking from personal experience, I think for myself, we add so much to our plate thinking that can handle it. The plate doesn't get any bigger. Like, we don't get any more time in the day, time in the week, and we just keep on adding. And, for me, I've stepped away from social media a couple of times, because that's a mental stress, and protecting my peace and doing all these things. There's all these things I think that men don't want to do, women either, but kids, like everybody, just doesn't want to do them, because we feel like we're letting people down. And it goes back to what you said, Jason, of if we're not taking care of ourselves, boundaries are good. Jesus set boundaries too. Like parents said, like we boundaries are okay. But taking care of ourselves first and foremost, and not having to, explain that to people. Some people are like, oh, well, why are you not doing this? Well, it's for me. But why? Well, and I think for men, it's mostly, you said it, in denial. Like, we're in denial that we're having an issue. Alcohol, drugs, stress, wearing ourselves thin. We're just in that denial because we don't want to admit, because to us it's failure. Well, I failed. It's not a failure. It's just a redirection. So I think that's huge in what you said on, man, just pouring into yourself, self-care, self-love, loving yourself, forgiving yourself, giving yourself grace so that we can give it to other people too. So that's huge. Yeah. And Amy's, I'll run into that since it's mental health. What do you recommend to parents when kids who are struggling refuse any kind of mental help? Great question, because I obviously have two and we do it too. But what do you think, Jason?
What first comes to mind is you got to find someone who can communicate with the kid. Because like the first steps that I would think is neither my kids nor my parents ever listen to me. And that's just a function of being, related to them. Right. So the first thing I would do is I got to find someone they connect with, whether that's a therapist, whether that's a school counselor or a psychiatrist or a friend, whatever it is. That's the first thing I would do, because if they're not listening to you, you can't force it. You can't logic your way through it. They're just not going to listen. I think the other is figuring out more detail about why they're struggling and why they're refusing help. The stigma associated with the diagnosis, is it understanding the details of what that is, maybe help you figure out a better way to manage it. So that's what I would start with.
Yeah, I want to pile onto that, because I think that's so important. Obviously I'm a counselor, a degree in counseling. I believe everybody should have a counselor. I think it's great. Do I go see another counselor? No, but these guys are my counselors, right? We have relationships and we talk
all day, every day. We are.
So find somebody you can communicate. But when it comes to, especially with young ladies nowadays, it's very, once they hit a certain age, and Amy, we've talked about this before. I think once they hit a certain age, if they don't worry about having a counselor, it's almost accepted that they should have a counselor, because all girls, a lot of kids have counselors and all that, but it's building up to that point. With my daughter, when and both my daughters have seen counselors, and my son has seen counselor and all that. But with my daughter, my youngest, I literally went on to this to help her find a counselor. I found the youngest, the most brand new counselor, because she was young, and they literally, you just by looking and reading what this girl, her training and everywhere she had gone, I was like, that's the one. That's the one. That's who my daughter, I think, will connect. And I said to her, I think you'll connect with this person. I just had a good feeling about it. I think you'll connect with this person. And if you don't, then we can find somebody new. And she's been talking to this lady for years, to the point where now this lady's getting ready to have her first baby and all that. It's been, there's a relationship there. So I think you said it right, is find somebody that your daughter will connect. Find somebody that your son will connect with. You know, it's not easy to get them through the door, but if they go through the door and there's somebody there that they'll connect with, they're more
Yeah.
likely to stay and connect.
True.
And that's very true. Very true.
Wow.
Matt, this has been encouraging, man, for me, because I've listened more than I've talked, believe it or not, this week. But Jason, what you shared, and I think about it from a perspective of, you went through it. I'm thinking about it with my sons. I have a son in middle school, elementary school, a son in elementary school, and I have this belief that things are going well. I don't know if I have to really think about that, but man, you never know. It could be a pivot just like that, or what I'm missing, because these guys know I left a career where I was traveling all the time, out of the home, was not here, and I had to change and get to a point where I could be home every day. And I've seen the dividends in that, being able to be here, be home. I mean, the other night we're playing Uno till like 11 o'clock at night. We're board gaming now. It's crazy, because it's like what I may have lost in resources in my previous career, I'm gaining with time. I'm coaching now and other things that is really pouring back into them. And so your experience is inspirational. I hope I never have to go through it, but man, I appreciate your, I like to say, a little bit of vulnerability coming in an unfamiliar space and telling your story, because, it just gives me fuel to make sure that I'm really crystal clear on my role as their dad, and being available to them, listening. And like you say, get them the support. If I can't do it, if Aaron can't do it, that we make sure we have people in their lives that can make sure they're heard. So I appreciate you now another brother from another mother, and I appreciate you being on with us tonight.
Yeah, and we're coming up at the hour mark. Josh, I'll let you say something if you want to say something else, and then I'll say something, and then Jason, you get the last few minutes to close us out.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, it starts with us. I think as men, I think as the, head of the household, as the provider, as the fixer, all those things. But we also have to make sure, just like Jason said, is that we are taking care of ourselves first, because we can take care of so many more people in a much better way as if we take care of ourselves first. And I think that the biggest thing you said, I think that people need to hear, is that that's not selfish. So I'll leave it at that. So I appreciate Jason. Thank you so much for being on, for sharing. But yeah, that's what I took is, self-care is not selfish, even if a man does it, even if us men do it.
yeah, and I don't know if y'all can see this, but I am frozen.
You are frozen. You are frozen.
I mean, I was just so entranced in what y'all are saying, but I'm not that frozen. Good
Matt.
Lord.
Matt,
are you there?
I'm like, Barbara Eden going
funny.
on.
Hey, last thing I'll say, and then I'll turn it over to you, Jason. Y'all can still hear me, so that's a good thing. Or maybe not. I don't know. Is that we all three have these sweatshirts on tonight, and there you go. Iron sharpens iron, and I think that Proverbs 27:17. I think it says a lot to what you've done tonight for us, Jason. You've come in, you've been vulnerable, you've talked through a story that's not necessarily an easy one to talk, but it's going to help. It's going to help so many people that you don't even realize. And it's a message that you have to share. You have to talk about it. It's a whole, a subject that nobody wants to go through. Unfortunately, you had to go through it, but you sharing the message is so important. And I couldn't be, just more appreciative of you coming on. And so thank you. And what we'll do is we'll give you the last words and, kind of let you close us out.
Yeah, I'll just finish. If you got kids or you're going to have kids, I think whether they articulate it or not, what they really just want is your time and attention. And it's so easy to get caught up in, I got to make money, I got to take care of this, I got to take care of that. You just got to make a rule for yourself. Like you got to, like if the kids need something, you stop what you're doing and you spend time with the kids. They come and ask, you want to watch TV, you stop what you're doing and do it. Doesn't matter how important it is what you're doing, but that rule has to come first. And then you just build that time in your schedule. So you look ahead and you say, you know what, I'm going to take the kids out to dinner this day. I'm going to take my kid to putt this day. You can talk to the kids and just put a little bit of energy into putting time on the schedule. And that way you don't find yourself 6 months later, like barely knowing who your kids are. Right. So, put to me, every decision I make now is about time and how I can get more time. I'm perfectly happy spending whatever resource, money, whatever it is, to get more time. And that is time either to spend with my kids or to spend on myself. And I think that's something that happened, like Matt, you mentioned 40s to 50s. I think a lot of us start thinking the same way as we start feeling worn down and like we can't keep doing what we're doing. We have to do something different. And that would be my biggest message is, every decision is about creating more time. And with that time, do the two most important things to take care of yourself and take care of your family.
Perfect. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. This will not be the last time Jason is on here with us. So we'll have him back and we'll talk about other topics. So thank you very much for being on. And everybody have a good night. We'll see you next